You never think about how lonely the world can be until you're stuck in an empty building at night. My job? I work security at a small office complex. Not much happens there during the day, but at night, it's like a different world. My shifts are long, usually from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's just me, a couple of security cameras, and endless hallways lit by flickering fluorescent lights. I started this job 6 months ago, and for the most part, it was easy money. Until that night. It was a Thursday, and the air felt thick, humid even, despite the AC running at full blast. I remember walking the halls, the sounds of my footsteps echoing, the squeak of my rubber soles on the linoleum floor almost too loud. My patrol was simple. Walk the building every hour, check each office to make sure it's locked, and log any unusual activity. Nothing too exciting. Around 2 a.m., I noticed something strange on one of the cameras. It was subtle, almost like a flicker at first, a small movement in the lower corner of the screen. But when I looked again, nothing. Just an empty hallway leading to the east wing, where most of the offices were. I chalked it up as a glitch. Maybe the camera was malfunctioning. But then, 10 minutes later, I heard a voice. A faint click-clack, like footsteps, but not quite right. It was slow, deliberate, almost like someone dragging their feet. My heart sped up, and I grabbed my flashlight, even though every inch of the building was brightly lit. I walked towards the source of the sound, down the hallway towards the east wing, where I had seen the camera glitch. When I got there, the hallway was empty, just rows of closed doors. Offices I knew were locked, and the faint hum of electricity running through the lights overhead. I walked slowly, shining my flashlight from door to door, checking each handle as I passed. All locked. As I reached the last office, the one at the very end of the hallway, something felt wrong. It's hard to explain, but the air felt colder, heavier somehow, like I wasn't alone. I checked the door handle, locked, but I swear I could hear something on the other side. Breathing? No, it was more like scratching. I pressed my ear to the door, holding my breath, straining to listen. Then the noise stopped. I stood there for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest, waiting for something. But nothing happened, just silence. I tried to tell myself it was my imagination, that the quiet was messing with me. I shook my head and started to walk back towards the main lobby. But halfway down the hall, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then everything went black. I froze. My flashlight was still in my hand, but for a second, I didn't even think to use it. I just stood there, in the pitch black darkness, listening. That's when I heard it again. The footsteps, slow, dragging, getting closer. I whipped the flashlight around, shining it in the direction of the noise, but there was nothing. The hallway was empty, but the footsteps kept coming, closer, louder. It was like they were coming from everywhere at once, bouncing off the walls, echoing in my head. I spun around, my flashlight cutting through the darkness, but I couldn't see anything. Then, just as suddenly as they started, the footsteps stopped. My hand was shaking, and I could feel the cold sweat running down my back. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down, telling myself it was just a trick of the mind. The power would come back on any minute. I just needed to wait. But then, from the darkness, I heard something worse than footsteps. A whisper, low, raspy, like someone breathing right behind me. I couldn't make out the words, but the voice sounded wrong, not human. I whipped around, shining my flashlight into the darkness. Empty. But the whispers didn't stop. It was just everywhere, surrounding me, getting louder, more insistent. My heart at this point was hammering in my chest, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I felt like I was losing my mind. Then, as quickly as the lights had gone out, they flickered back on. I was standing alone in the hallway, the hum of the fluorescent lights filling the silence. I blinked, disoriented, my mind racing to make sense of what just happened. But there was no time to process it. The camera feed on my radio crackled to life and a distorted voice came through. Check the basement. I froze. The basement was off limits, even for security. No one was allowed down there. It was sealed off years ago. Something about asbestos or structural issues. I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing for sure. No one should be in the basement. Hello? I called into the radio. But the only response I got was static. I didn't want to go down there. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to leave, to get out of the building. But my job was on the line. I grabbed my keys, heart pounding in my chest, and made my way to the basement stairs. The door was old, metal and rusted, and as I unlocked it, the hinges creaked loudly, echoing down the dark stairwell. I shined my flashlight down the steps. The beam didn't reach the bottom. With one last deep breath, I started down the stairs. They creaked beneath my weight, each step sounding like a gunshot in silence. The air down there was cold and musty, and it smelled like damp earth and mold. My flashlight flickered as I reached the bottom, casting long shadows across the cracked concrete floor. I swept the beam of light across the room. It was empty. Just old pipes and broken furniture. But then, in the far corner, something moved. A shape hunched over, crouched in the shadows. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. The shape didn't respond. It just shifted slightly, its back still to me. I stepped closer, trying to get a better look, and that's when I saw it. It wasn't human. Its skin was pale and stretched too tight over its bones, and its limbs were long, almost unnaturally so. Its head was bald, and as it turned towards me, I saw its eyes, black, empty, soulless. I stumbled backwards, my heart in my throat, but it didn't move. It just stared at me, its mouth hanging open in a silent scream. I turned and bolted up the stairs, slamming the door behind me, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't stop running until I was out of the building, the cool night air hitting my face like a slap. I quit that job the next day. I don't know what I saw down there, and I don't wanna know. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I can still hear its footsteps. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, you can always reach me on real@gameacademics.vip. Thank you everybody, and good night.